Sonny Melendrez, Sonny Radio, sonnyradio.com.
Hello, it's Sonny Melendrez, and welcome to the positive side of the radio spectrum. You found the Sonny Melendrez Show, where every week we strive to bring you entertainment and inspiration through storytelling, fascinating guests, exclusive celebrity interviews, and it's all delivered with lots of enthusiasm. Now, no doubt you are very concerned about what's going on in the world right now. Well, I'm happy to tell you that my guest today might be considered a comforter-in-chief. He is Dr. Harry Croft, and believe me, when it comes to anxiety, Dr. Croft has heard it all. You'll hear what he has to say about how we feel these days in a moment. We're brought to you, as always, by Ideal Precision Roofing in San Antonio. No doubt you've probably had some rain, maybe even some pellets of hail. Believe me, hailstorms can happen at any time in South Texas. And that's why Ideal Precision Roofing is your go-to company when it comes to reliable service, expert professionals, the best warranty in the business, and you'll be happy to know that Ideal is an Owens Corning Platinum Preferred contractor. You see, Owens Corning, the biggest name in roofing materials, only gives this designation to the top 1% of roofers in America. You can visit their website to see why. So, when you suspect that your roof has been affected by a hailstorm, don't delay. Call Ideal Precision Roofing in San Antonio at 210-485-1553. That's 210-485-1553, or visit them at idealprecisionroofing.com and tell them that Sonny Melendrez sent you. And now, on with the show.
Sonny Radio, sonnyradio.com, San Antonio.
My guest today is Dr. Harry Croft, considered a world authority on the subject of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. He has treated over 7,000 patients during his career. So based on the high anxiety so many have during the coronavirus pandemic, I couldn't think of anyone better to have on today's program. Harry is also a dear friend. Welcome, Harry.
Well, thank you.
So a lot has happened, Harry, since we last spoke on the radio. I want to start out by asking you, all that has happened in the last week or so has got so many people so anxious. Is the feeling that we're having, especially if you're elderly or you're in certain situations, is that a form of PTSD?
I'm not sure it's PTSD. I think it's a form of anxiety, and it certainly could be just as incapacitating as PTSD. But regardless of what you call it, it is different for different people. And for some people, it is just overwhelming. For others, not that big a deal.
Now, would you say that the reason is because the fear of the unknown? I mean, there's so much we don't know. I mean, if you're dealing with a hurricane or a tornado or something that we know is coming, there's an end to it. Explain how this is different.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, for most of us, this is something new. I've been a physician over 40 years. I've never been involved in something like this before. There have been epidemics along the way, swine flu and SARS and other things, but nothing this big involving this many people and publicized by the media as much as it has been. All of that causes tremendous anxiety for a lot of people. And then you add on top of that the impact of the financial markets that have gone along with this that may affect so many people, for example, who have IRAs and 401ks and are watching the stock market. That then adds to the anxiety. And then finally, the idea that the people at most risk of having the most reaction or the elderly or the sick. And so all of those cause problems. And for some people, and those people that love them, can be overwhelming problems.
Now, there are so many people who are in the situation where they're the head of the household, especially when you have kids now at home from school, and you're trying to keep everybody calm. What is your advice to somebody who's in that position?
A great question, and it's a question I've been getting a lot over the last few days. You know, part of the answer is it depends on the age of the child. It also depends on the psychological makeup of the child, perhaps even before any of this happens. So if you have a child that was already anxious or was already on edge, this might have a much different effect than, say, for someone who was older and who had been doing fairly well. Again, it starts off, what to do about children starts off by talking to the child and saying, what have you heard about all of this stuff surrounding the virus? What do you know about it? What have other people told you? What questions do you have? What concerns do you have? You know, over the years, we've advised people during all sorts of tough times, whether it be war or school shootings or hurricanes or fires or floods. And the first thing we always say is exactly this: don't assume that you know what your kid is most concerned about. Sometimes it really surprises you what concerns them the most. You think it's A, when in fact it's D, and you didn't even think of that. So start off talking to kids by asking what they know and asking what concerns, what questions they have. And then you answer them based upon their age and their psychological makeup. Generally, if they're younger kids, you ask the questions, and then you start off by reassuring them that we're going to do everything possible to make sure we're getting along as well as we could. I'll be here to support you. You know, you can always ask me questions. If you have questions, you know, there are always things that we can talk about. So that's number one. Number two is probably limit the child's view of the news. That doesn't mean that they can't watch the news, but watching the news over and over and over again. We learned this during the war, that a child may not be able to differentiate something that's happening thousands of miles away from something that's happening right here, right now in our living room. And if they see an event on TV, for example, that's repeated over and over and over again, they may have difficulty separating something that happened one time from watching the news and assuming it's happened hundreds of times because they keep talking about it, all the news. And so probably limiting news watching may be helpful for some kids. And if you as a parent are really upset by watching the news again and again and again. There's a difference between being informed and being overwhelmed. And sometimes people watch the news, adults, till they're just overwhelmed by the impact of the news. So if you're overwhelmed as a parent, you probably can assume that if your child sees you, even if you think you're hiding the information or your emotions from the child, you may not be doing it as effectively as you think you are, and the child may pick up on that. And if they see you're really scared and overwhelmed, they may become the same.
Now, I would imagine that would also apply to conversations you may have with other adults in the house while the kids are listening.
Absolutely. Don't assume that I'm hiding this thing 100% from my kids. May not be true at all. The kids may be picking up on the looks on your face, or the tone of your voice, or the words they hear you use to other adults, and they may be impacted as well. And Sonny, we've learned an important lesson over the last several days looking at the spring break news reports.
Yes.
Where even though the CDC says make sure you have social distancing 10 feet apart, no more than, at first it was 250, then it was 50, then it was 10 people in one place at one time. Despite those warnings, we saw the kids on the beaches of Florida or South Texas that were gathering together, and it was spring break as usual, with them no more than 2 feet apart, for example. So part of what you may have to talk to your teenagers about, because teenagers assume, they're invincible anyhow, it's not going to happen to them. And they've also heard on the news that it's mostly old people or sick people that die from this virus. So if I'm a teenager and I'm not particularly sick, I don't have anything to worry about. Party forward is their approach. And they don't realize, we may not know all about this virus that we will ultimately know about it in terms of who's being affected. I don't know if you saw the news report or heard the news report just yesterday that said they're learning from China that maybe some younger people are dying from this virus. So it may not be as clear as it seemed. And the other part of that news is, even though the teenager or young adult or millennial may not have that much to worry about, they can then be someone who transmits the disease to somebody important in their community or their family that is older and that might be at risk. And wouldn't it be horrible for the teenager if they were the ones who transmitted the virus to their grandparents, etc.?
Well, you're absolutely right. Now, what would your advice be to a parent in that situation where you've got a teenager like that, college age, home for who knows how long, and has that attitude? How do you get through to them?
Well, for some people, it's pretty difficult, Sonny. I mean, you and I both remember as kids, we were, of course, perfect, but others may remember what it was like as a teenager to feel like the only thing important to me is today.
Yeah.
And what I can do today, and what I can get done during spring break. And so you sit down with your teen and you find out their attitudes by asking questions. And then hopefully you present them information that they may not have thought about, of all this stuff we're doing now, much of which we may not understand, and much of which we probably don't like very much. We don't like not being able to go to spring break or to the prom, or go to a bar if we're old enough, or go to a restaurant, or go to a movie, or go to a shopping mall. Much of this stuff we're doing now is to ultimately keep this disease in check. Because we know, those of you who have watched TV, that right now, if we do nothing, the virus peaks in terms of the number of people who get it and then transmit it to others, and the numbers go up tremendously. And if they get too high and too many people get real sick, the healthcare system may not be able to handle it. So part of what we're doing now is to prevent this overwhelming fast spread of the virus, and instead keep it happening more slowly. So in the meantime, we can be getting the respirators we need, getting bed space in hospitals we need, developing vaccines and perhaps new treatments that we don't yet now have, so that when the push comes, we'll be in a much better position to handle it.
The Sonny Melendres Show continues in a moment with more radio encouragement. Don't leave now.
We're brought to you by Ideal Precision Roofing in San Antonio. There is no question about it. Ask homeowner after homeowner, and they'll tell you about their experience with Ideal. And as you know, we're coming up on, actually already in, hail season in South Texas. So in the coming months, you never know what might happen, and your roof all of a sudden is damaged, and you suspect maybe hail damage. It's hard for you to see what's going on up there. That is why Ideal Precision Roofing offers a free inspection. That's right. You make the call to 210-485-1553. An expert will come out. They'll actually go up on your roof, and they'll give you an assessment of what's going on up there. And if indeed you do have damage, they will then get the ball rolling with your insurance company. And you'll be surprised as to how easy the entire process is. And this is the one thing that Ideal customers say all the time. They appreciate the communication along the way. I mean, it's almost hourly. You do not have to worry about what is going on and how long it's going to take, and you'll be surprised right after it's done, it's like they were never even there. You've got a beautiful new roof, and then you too will be singing the praises of Ideal Precision Roofing. Give them a call for that free inspection at 210-485-1553 or visit them at idealprecisionroofing.com and tell them that Sonny Melendres sent you.
You're listening to the Sonny Melendres Show. Sonny's email address is sonny@sonnyradio.com.
My conversation continues with Dr. Harry Croft. Now, I would imagine that a good way to comfort those in your charge, good way to talk to them, your spouse, your parents, who are extremely concerned, have high anxiety, would be to kind of put the spotlight on what you just talked about, on the positive things that are happening and the solutions that are being sought.
Absolutely. And let me go through some things that people can do. And perhaps if you're talking to those, as you said, in your charge, you can mention some of these things. But before I get to the things, let me remind you, when I did my television program, I did an episode on what do you tell people who have had a great loss, maybe a death in their family. What do you say to them? And I remember I interviewed a number of people, and one of the things they told me is, Dr. C, it wasn't what they said. Heck, I don't even remember what they told me. All I remember is they were there for me. They sat down, they listened to me, they held my hand, they told me they cared about me, and they were there for me. And we sometimes forget that in our desire to do and say exactly the right thing. We sometimes forget that what's maybe important for those in our charge is just for us to be there, just to call them up and do FaceTime and just chat. Heck, it doesn't matter necessarily what you chat about. It's just that you're there. Because, with things going on now and so many people, especially the elderly, kind of cooped up, just having somebody to talk to is worthwhile and beneficial. So don't forget to do that. You can do it with FaceTime. You can do it with Skype. You can do it in social media. But doing it, showing others you care, can be important. Now, what can you help people with? Number one is realize that at some point we're going to get past this. I know it. I feel it in my heart, you might say, and this too shall pass. Our goal is to make the devastation it causes as little as possible. Number two, perhaps limit your television watching or social media watching, because sometimes, look, people say all kind of things, and sometimes it just drives you nuts. And so limiting your view can be important. Also, remember that not everything you read on social media is true. I can tell you I've looked at a lot of things on Facebook that are not. They're selling some ultraviolet thing, which is supposed to kill the virus.
Yeah.
It's not true. You can go to the World Health Organization site for things that are myths and read a lot of these. They're selling garlic like it's crazy. They're selling some sort of hand sanitizer that doesn't do anything. And so a lot of things in media are not true. So limiting is important, can be important. Next is get information that you need, but don't overdo it. Too much information is counterproductive, not productive. Next is take care of yourself. That might mean eating right. It might mean exercising, even if you can't go to the gym. Just exercising at home or wherever you are can be helpful. Try to get enough rest if you can. If you know how to meditate, meditate. If you know mindfulness, do mindfulness training. If you know cognitive behavioral therapy, do that. Do things you can to make yourself not forget, but give yourself some space away from the worry to go forward. So those are some of the things.
Wow. Well, I have to tell you, of all the conversations that I've had with you, on or off the air, that was the most exhilarating, and it comes at an incredible time. I can't thank you enough for your positivity. You mentioned your television show. You coined the phrase, "The mind is powerful medicine," and you've demonstrated it just now by giving us not only those tips, but also the self-talk that we should have for ourselves individually to keep us going and to keep our focus on a brighter day.
Thank you. And Sonny, thank you with your vast media background. thank you for giving me the chance to talk about these things and helping people. This is a tough time, and we're going to make it through it, but we want to make it, if not easy, as less difficult as it has to be. Thanks.
I'm right there with you. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Croft.
My pleasure.
Well, that's my visit with Dr. Harry Croft. We'll have links to his website along with his Facebook page and contact information at sonnyradio.com/show. That's sonnyradio.com/show, where you can also subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. Until next time, I'm Sonny Melendrez, reminding you to stay safe and stay positive. As Dr. Croft says, the mind is powerful medicine. Bye-bye.